hardships. Her courage and maternal instincts helped ease this difficult transition.
I think having the children and having the focus being on our family now going forward with the three of us really gave us a direction and a way to overcome this adversity, because we only needed to be reminded of what would Daddy want us to be doing now.
My mom was a terrific mother, and we were a very close-knit family, and she stayed home and took care of us.
Brandon Lee was 8 when his father died, old enough to understand his loss and want to live up to Bruce's legend. As a result, like his father before him, Brandon had a turbulent and rebellious adolescence.
You'd have to find the alpha dog, right? You'd have to find the alpha dog, the guy on the playground, or he'd find you, you know, and then you'd kick the living hell out of him and everything would be okay.
I think Brandon felt the pressure to be the man of the family. It was just in him. That's the kind of youngster he was, kind of young man he was, and the kind of man he grew up to be. I think he always felt like he was taking care of Shannon and me.
He always sort of took the role of my protector. Like every year when I would have a birthday, even if I was my 23rd birthday or something, he would say, "What are you, 16 this year?" He always tended to look at me as younger and more fragile and petite than I actually was.
Even as he became the man of the family, Brandon also developed a passion for acting. And in time, martial arts. He sought out his father's closest friends and students, looking for physical and spiritual guidance.
He said all his life, he said, because he had the last name Lee and his father was Bruce Lee, he was hard to live up to. And I said that the same way I felt. I said, you know, being your father's student, people expect me to fly, and I don't have the talent of your father. And he goes, "Oh, tell me about it."
Brandon was brilliant. Brandon was a philosopher, conversant in so many subjects. You could call Brandon up and say, "What are you doing today?" And he'll say nothing. He said, "Well, you want to get on our motorcycles and ride to Texas?" And he'll say, "Sure." You know, he was so spontaneous and so in the moment and so alive.
When Brandon reached his mid-20s, he began pursuing work as an actor. But despite being the son of a movie star and having plenty of charisma of his own, work was slow in coming. Ironically, his first role was in a 1986 sequel to the Kung Fu television series that his father had created and been rejected from. Instructor and fight choreographer Mike Vendrell, who spent many hours sparring with Brandon, worked to prepare him for his first on-screen fight scene. The pressure was intense. Both men knew only too well whom everyone would be comparing Brandon to.
After we had finished, everybody applauded and they said how great. They were patting him on the back and saying how great he was. And we went back to our dressing room. As I was walking back to my dressing room, I heard psst, psst. And from the dark shadows, he steps out and he's crying. And he walks up and he puts his arms around me and he says, "All my life I've tried to live up to my father's reputation." He says, "It's been so hard on me." He says, I never thought I could ever do it." And he hugged me and he said, "I know my dad's smiling at me right now."
In 1992, Brandon landed his first starring role in the action film Rapid Fire. Brandon was favorably reviewed, and while comparisons to his father were inevitable and often flattering, the younger actor made it clear he took great pride in being his own person.
That same fierce glare that his dad had, I saw that coming out on Brandon in some of those videos, and then the quickness and the movements and things like that that had that same determination and deadliness that his dad had, and it just kind of brought tears to my eyes when I saw that, because it was so remindful of Bruce.
A weird question to me when people ask me about, you know, following in my father's footsteps, because if by that you mean doing really excellent films and doing the kind of work that my father did, doing that quality of work, that level of work, absolutely, you know, absolutely that's what I want to do. But if you mean trying to imitate him in some way, you know, trying to be a poor man's Bruce Lee, not at all.
In 1993, Brandon was hired to play the lead character in The Crow, a supernatural thriller. It offered him the perfect chance to expand his acting range and to become a star in his own right. For Brandon Lee, It seemed as if his every dream was coming true.
He had found a love in his life and was due to be married in 17 days, and he was so happy. Everything was coming together in his life, and he couldn't wait to have children. They wanted to have children right away, and he delighted in the planning of the wedding.
On March 31st, 1993, while Brandon was practicing a scene, something went horribly wrong. A prop gun that should have held blanks was accidentally left loaded with a fake but nevertheless lethal bullet. Brandon Lee, only 28 years old, was shot and killed. Beloved son, big brother, model, actor. Brandon Lee, like his father before him, died a senseless and tragic death in the very prime of his life.
It was sort of just like staring at the world sort of around me. I remember being amazed that the world was still going on, you know, and being very wondering why a lot, you know, why did this happen?
A bunch of us flew up to Seattle for the funeral, and we were just sitting on the plane looking at each other going, why are we here? What's going on?
One thinks maybe tragedy doesn't strike twice in the same family, but of course we know that happens. The most crushing thing about losing Brandon is that he lost his beautiful, wonderful life.
Coping with the loss of Bruce and Brandon has been a difficult challenge, but Linda and Shannon Lee have drawn upon the inspiration their loved ones left behind and are now moving forward with their new lives.